Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined by Andrew Erickson. We're talking wide receivers to buy and sell. We'll sprinkle in a little on the quarterbacks and tight ends as well. We dove deeper into the running back position on our part one of this episode, which we'll be doing every week of the season, splitting it up into two. So you can check that out on YouTube or audio if you missed it already. We talked some high-level strategy advice as well on that one. It was a good episode, except for the first 5 minutes where I was forced against my will to talk about the Ravens-Lions game. This show will be more fun, though, because we don't have to talk about that. We can dive right into the receivers here, Erickson. I do want to let everybody know first, though, if you want a chance to win the ultimate symbol of fantasy glory, the Fantasy Football Championship belt, courtesy of our good friends at Trophy Smack, the #1 destination for epic fantasy football hardware, then this is your moment. This massive gold-plated belt is built to make a statement. It's bold, it's heavy, and it's guaranteed to turn heads in your league. Don't just win your championship, wear it. To enter, all you need to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now. Drop a comment below on any of our videos. That is it. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss your chance to claim this championship belt and flex on your entire league. Can I get a flex, Erickson? Yeah, there we go. All right. Let's dive into our wide receivers to buy. Who do you have first up for us?
If somehow you don't have this guy on your team, I'm not sure how, because I think everyone told you to draft him from Fantasy Pros. Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers. I don't think that the box score has described exactly what McMillan has done through 3 weeks. I think that he's just the clear alpha in this passing game. I think that he's looked fantastic. Even last week, if you include the penalties, he actually totaled 10 targets, a 34% target share. I think that you just got to get this guy on your team. I think that he has a breakout boom game coming. He's seeing all the high-value targets in the Panthers offense. He's seeing red zone looks. He's seeing downfield targets. And Bryce Young is just missing him on a couple of throws here and there. So I think he's on the cusp of a massive breakout. And when you look at the schedule for the Carolina Panthers, a lot of great matchups, including the Patriots in week 4. Again, assuming that Christian Gonzalez doesn't play, I think Tetairoa McMillan is going to absolutely eat in this matchup. And he is someone that I want to go after aggressively in trades this week.
I mean, I can't trade for him because I do roster him pretty much everywhere. I finished my season-long rankings in draft rankings. I finished August with him as a top 12 receiver in my full season rankings. Like, I just had so much conviction on him, and I know the touchdowns haven't been there yet. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be coming at some point. Obviously the usage is, again, I think you make a great point that, like, the box score might not look like this, but, like, it's very clear if you look at, things like his target share and just, like, if you just watch the game, like, this is the alpha on the team. He is their best player on offense, like, at any position, pretty much already. I was really high on him just as a player, not even as a fantasy producer, but as a player. And I feel like I wasn't high enough. Like, I just think he is, like, this time next year, I think is going to be consensus. Like, he's not going to be Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, but I think he's going to be considered one of the 10 best receivers in football. Like, I just think he's that good of a player. And I expect the production throughout the rest of the season to reflect where I think he's going to end up in everybody's estimation. And again, the touchdowns will come. Like, I don't see, when you look at him as a player, you're like, this guy was built to catch touchdowns. I don't see any way that they don't start coming. Who is the player that you would give up for him? Because we are obviously both very high on Tetairoa McMillan. We would want to be aggressive, but you are talking about a rookie receiver with an iffy quarterback, a questionable quarterback situation. I'll say charitably. So when you look at that, who is the archetype of player? Is it a high-end running back 2 that you're looking to move for him? Is it, do you want to find a different receiver and make a challenge trade? Like, what is the type of move to get a guy that we have just been singing his praises all summer?
I think that both of those are kind of options. And an RB2 that you're not really using is if a Tony Pollard's an option. If someone's looking for a higher floor type of running back, if someone's running back needy, Tony Pollard would come to mind. Keenan Allen, right? I'm not exactly sure how he's viewed in terms of the trade market. Maybe people are just buying that, hey, Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert equals fantasy points, because that's all it's been the first 3 weeks of the season. Keenan Allen is just producing at an unreal level. And if someone thinks that this is going to sustain all year and McConkey is going to be the third wheel in this Chargers passing game, then he would be a player I would try to maybe package with somebody else to go get T-Mac. I think T-Mac's a situation where I don't think I feel like I can overpay for him. because I'm just so confident about what he's going to do down the stretch where, hey, week 4, I paid a pretty hefty amount to get T-Mac on my team, but it didn't matter because he was a monster down the stretch. And so it didn't matter what I paid, even if it seemed like an overpay at the time. I would just be aggressive trying to go after him.
Would you move Brian Thomas Jr. for him?
Man, I think it's close enough where if that's what it would take to get the job done, to make the deal happen, then I think that I would probably pull. I still think Brian Thomas Jr. is a buy low, but again, 3 weeks with Trevor Lawrence has been no one's idea of what we wanted to have happen. It's funny. I was thinking about, again, going back to the memes. I'm thinking about that Wolverine meme when he's looking at the picture. And it's Brian Thomas Jr. and he's looking at a picture of Mac Jones on the sideline with the Jaguars when the Jags play the 49ers this week.
Oh, that's great. I want to see where the line is. So McMillan is wide receiver 15 in consensus rest of season rankings. That's fantasypros.com/rankings. You can check those out if you want. I want to see what the line is. So right above him is Brian Thomas Jr. Right above Thomas is Zay Flowers. I would definitely trade Zay Flowers for Tetairoa McMillan. Right. That's an easy one. Garrett Wilson?
I am so bad at ranking Garrett Wilson every single week. So I think just to save myself and my sanity, I probably would make that trade.
DeVonta Adams?
No. I think DeVonta I would probably still keep. He's been so good with Stafford. And I mean, unless you're really concerned about maybe Stafford's long-term health, I think Adams, I think I'd still keep.
What about A.J. Brown?
I would keep A.J. Brown.
Okay. So you would have Tetairoa McMillan roughly in that wide receiver 12 spot. Now, there are some names behind him. I'm actually curious. This is not buy, sell, or hold. Just go and rank for me, 3 very fun young players here. Actually, I'll throw a fourth because they're all 4 right in a row. Rank rest of season, McMillan, Odunze, Sutton, and Egbuka. They are back to back in the consensus ranking. So
McMillan would probably be first still.
Okay.
And then probably Odunze. And then, see, the Bucs is hard to kind of gauge because Egbuka has so much value right now with all the injuries. But is there ever going to be a time? Are we ever actually going to see Godwin and Evans and Egbuka on the field at the same time? Like, that may not actually happen this year, just depending on how these injuries shake out. So I think Egbuka would just be next and then Sutton. And I'm not trying to put a knock on Sutton, because he has been fantastic in 2 of 3 games.
These are all guys inside the top 20 rest of the season, so we don't dislike any of them.
Yeah, but I think Sutton would be last just because sometimes Bo Nix hits and sometimes he just doesn't hit. So that could be kind of frustrating.
All right, well, Tetairoa McMillan either way seems like a strong buy. You can use the trade analyzer at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the Fantasy Pros app to instantly evaluate how any trade will affect your team for this week, the rest of the season, or even in Dynasty. Erickson, this is the episode, if you include the running backs part of this episode, this is the episode of the rookies because you have another rookie here that you want to buy.
Yes, I'm buying Matthew Golden, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. So no one in the Packers offense really popped off the box score because they're playing the Cleveland Browns in week 3, a game that they lost on the road. But I was very encouraged by what Golden's usage was in this particular contest. He led the team in 34 air yards. He ended up having 4 catches for 52 yards on 4 targets. So he caught every single ball that was thrown his way. He actually did also catch a deep target. He was also getting involved a lot on reverses and some carries. So encouraging usage for a player that we kind of thought, okay, he's going to be the deep threat for this offense. We saw that evolve in week 3. And Jaden Reed, he's on injured reserve. Tucker Kraft, is he 100%? We're not really sure. Dobbs, Wicks, guys that don't necessarily move the needle. Matthew Golden was still a first-round pick. He has an opportunity to seize the wide receiver 1 role in Green Bay, which for the most part hasn't necessarily been great, but trending in the right direction. No one's talking about Matthew Golden because no one's going to get super excited about 4 for 52 except for me on this show here. And why I'm most excited is you put his track speed against that Dallas defense inside a dome. This is a breakout game for Matthew Golden against the Dallas Cowboys. So you can get him, I think, very, very cheap. You don't have to give up a lot. I mean, he may have been dropped in some leagues after what he did the first 2 weeks. So scoop up Matthew Golden and watch him fly on that Dallas track.
This is the cheapest player to buy across both episodes, right? Yeah. This is the one that you probably don't have to spend a lot to get him.
Get a throw-in, potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, a first round rookie wide receiver. That's hard to say. A first round rookie wide receiver is like the exact just demographic of player that you want to be targeting in fantasy football. Like, these are the guys every single year. I can't remember the last year, Erickson, that we didn't see some first round wide receiver have a slow start to their career and then look like a league winner by the end of the season. It's literally Justin Jefferson was a famous one, Rashee Rice. It just always happens. And there are other receivers we like. Of course, T-Mac is one of our favorite players to target at all, but Golden just feels like he really could fit into that bucket, like very obviously, I think, and not cost you a lot. I was kind of low on Golden early in draft season. Then I was really convinced by what I saw and just some of the stuff I read and some of the people who I think are smarter than me who really liked him. And I was just like, I'm on board, and I wanted to start investing in him in drafts. So I have him in a few places, mostly teams that I drafted later in the year. But where I don't have him, I think he's a great target, again, because he can be a throw-in, I think, in a lot of leagues.
Yeah, and the box score stats just don't pop off the page. But in terms of the context of that game, where there was basically no offense and he ended up being the leader in terms of yards and catches and targets, like that matters to me, that they're such a wide receiver. And you think back to that Thursday night game against the Commanders. If he catches that bomb from Jordan Love, he's valued significantly higher than he is right now. But just because they don't connect on that one long pass. But where he's most likely to connect on that one long pass is when he's facing the Dallas Cowboys defense.
I have really high hopes for the Packers bouncing back.
As you should. We saw Russell Wilson play on Sunday Night Football, and a week removed from throwing for 450 yards against Dallas. Like, he looked terrible against the Giants.
Yeah.
And he threw for 450 yards against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
Come on.
I think the Packers offense is going to it's going to be like a really pleasant surprise how easy it is to score going from the Cleveland defense to the Dallas defense. Yes. So like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like again when we're a good offense. All right, give me a wide receiver to sell.
I'm going to go with Keenan Allen, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers. So he has been just one of the best picks you could have made in fantasy football through 3 weeks. He was basically free during draft season. He signed with the Chargers a little bit later into the summer, and I don't think that his ADP ever caught up to what we realistically should have thought about Keenan Allen. I think that at FantasyPros, I think that we ranked him pretty aggressively to make sure that a lot of you guys have him on your teams. I know that I moved him up. He was like one of my sleepers, even though it didn't really feel like a sleeper. But I just can't picture that this offense is going to continue to go where McConkey is going to be the third receiver on this team all year long. I think that McConkey is still too good of a player. He's a second-year receiver. Typically, we see guys take a step forward, going in from year 1 to year 2. Now, Keenan Allen has been the red zone guy for Justin Herbert. He scored 3 touchdowns in 3 straight weeks, but he's also 33 years old. In the last 3 seasons, he's missed games because of injury. So I don't want to just say, hey, just get rid of Keenan Allen for anything. You have to sell high because he was so cheap. He's already given you a great ROI on your draft pick. So if you want to ride him to the sunset, because eventually I do think the wheels are going to fall off because he's an older player, I think that that's fine because he's already given you an insane amount of value. But I think if you want to approach this in the most optimal way, I think that you should be looking to sell high of him because I just don't think that he's going to end up being the target share leader all year long and score touchdowns every single week, as good as Justin Herbert is playing. I think that McConkey's production is going to uptick in the coming weeks and kind of level out. And I think right now, you can probably just get more for Keenan Allen than you can Quentin Johnston. Because I think the stigma around Johnston is still so bad, even though he's looked significantly better in year 3 compared to year 2, and especially as a rookie. So Keenan Allen, for me, again, not a player that I'm trying to force to get rid of, because I think that he's still a guy you can start every single week as long as he's healthy. But maybe you can get a lot in return for him.
Yeah, I've been remarkably consistent, right? 7 catches, 68 yards and a touchdown, 5 catches, 61 yards and a touchdown, 7 catches, 65 yards and a touchdown. It's almost the identical stat line, every week so far this season. It does feel like it's less that I look at Keenan Allen and say something's not adding up right. He can't, you must sell, and more that I'm like, wide receiver 24 in the consensus rest of season rankings feels aggressive when we don't think he's the best receiver on this team, even though it hasn't played out that way with the usage so far this season. Like we're not sitting here saying like this is the best, pass catcher for Herbert to be throwing to. And I just look at some of the other names around him, and I just think about the ceiling. Like Rashee Rice is already halfway through his suspension. Yeah. Mike Evans is below him. I know there's injury stuff there. Marvin Harrison Jr., I know the usage is really frustrating, but it wouldn't shock me if he, became a high-level player at some point. DK Metcalf is the number one guy in his offense. T. Higgins, I know there's a quarterback issue, but he's still a talented player. Jalen Waddle, like Terry McLaurin. I'm not saying that I'm want to really plant my flag on any of those guys as they are way underranked, but I just feel like Keenan Allen being ahead of all of them feels like incorrect, I guess is the best way to put it. Even if the usage so far and what we have literally seen on the field says maybe it is correct, it's just hard for me to wrap my head around that lasting and him having the type of ceiling of that being ranked as a wide receiver 2 rest of the season, which is what he is right now.
I just think that's where his value is right now. I think that it's very, very high. And I think the approach with Keenan Allen is because you got him so late, there's a chance that he's actually been on your bench a lot of these weeks, which is kind of unfortunate because he wasn't someone you necessarily drafted as a starter. And he doesn't really fit the profile as a second half breakout, right? He's producing right now. So I think maybe the best move with him is to package him with another player, whether it's a running back or receiver, and then you move up a tier. You jump up a tier. So you're consolidating 2 assets into one because you may be pulling your hair out thinking, man, I drafted McConkey, started him for 3 weeks, left Keenan on the bench for 3 weeks. And now I was starting the wrong Chargers receiver every single week. That's super frustrating. So instead of taking your frustrations out on your own lineup, try to make a move and consolidate those 2 players into one, player that you can get up to. So that's kind of how I would approach Allen.
By the way, just because I did just mention Mike Evans, 5 minutes ago while we're recording this, Mike Garafolo tweeted that Evans is expected to miss a few weeks with a hamstring injury. An MRI showed it's not as bad as last year's hamstring injury that knocked him out for 4 weeks, but that he will miss some time, multiple weeks at least. So
well, there are it's death, taxes, and Mike Evans hamstring and 1,000 yards every single season.
Yeah. I can't imagine how good Egbuka is going to look the next couple of weeks. This is Rappaport is tweeting that Godwin could be coming back soon, but you wouldn't expect him to be full throttle right away. So Egbuka is going to be just a top 15 receiver for at least a few weeks here.
Yep.
All right. One more wide receiver to sell for you.
I'm going with DeVonta Smith for the Philadelphia Eagles. So Smith and A.J. Brown both kind of experienced a bounce back in week 3. We saw the Eagles have to throw the ball more in full-on comeback mode down against the Los Angeles Rams. However, I've seen the splits with DeVonta Smith when Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown are both healthy in the lineup. This goes back to last year. His production falls off pretty dramatically. Now, that was not the case in this particular matchup against the Los Angeles Rams, but this is not how the Eagles want to play offensively. They want to run the football and play defense like we saw weeks 1 through 2. So that's where I'm just worried about Smith and his long-term upside, where when these other guys are healthy, he's just not nearly as involved. And when you just look at the Eagles schedule, you have the Broncos, you have the Buccaneers who are playing next week, you have the Vikings, you have the Giants twice. Most of these games are not going to play out like the game against the Rams, where it's much more of a back and forth contest. Now, maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can give the Eagles some problems. So Smith, I think, maybe can be okay in this particular matchup. But just looking at the schedule, I just don't picture that, we're going to see a lot of targets for DeVonta Smith with these type of game scripts. I just don't see that happening. So coming off a really strong game where Dallas Goedert did play, I think maybe the narrative, he's going to be fine. Even it wasn't affected by him. His production wasn't affected by Dallas Goedert in this particular matchup. Well, Goddard was also coming back from an injury. So maybe he wasn't involved as much in the game plan. I think that's going to change in future weeks. And I'm just looking at the larger body of work with Smith and these other playmakers, and he just continues to underwhelm when those guys are healthy. So Smith coming off a game where he was really productive, caught a touchdown, I would try to sell high for those that are thinking, Smith is back to a weekly starter. I really don't think that's the case when these other guys are in the lineup.
So you don't view what we saw in the second half from Philly as hey, they're figuring it out again on the passing game, and we're going to see more of this looking forward. You look at that as the outlier?
To an extent. I think the outlier is that it fed both A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. Okay. I don't think that's going to be I think that, again, if you make me pick an Eagles receiver, I'm picking A.J. Brown. He is the clear-cut alpha in this offense. But on a week-to-week basis, again, Dallas Goedert didn't have any production in that game. So I think more often than not, one of these pass catchers is going to get left out at least every single week, if not 2 of them, depending on if the Eagles can really do what they want to do. And I think most often that's going to be DeVonta Smith. So I want to take this advantage and try to sell high on him.
Smith is multiple spots lower than Keenan Allen in the rest of season rankings, he's wide receiver 28, kind of in that same group of the names I was mentioning earlier, like Rice and Harrison and Metcalf and Higgins. He's right in the middle of that. So he's being ranked as a wide receiver 3 right now, rest of season. Let's go to the quarterbacks and tight ends. We're not going to do multiple for both positions here just because there are fewer names to talk about. They're less involved in trade questions typically. So we've got one quarterback or tight end buy, and then one quarterback or tight end sell. Who is the buy?
I'm going to buy Jordan Love. You want to buy players coming off of games against the Browns because their offensive production is almost certainly going to improve going against non-Browns teams, and it's a full 180, full 360, whatever you want to call it, against the Dallas Cowboys, the worst defense in the NFL. So I think the Packers offense is going to bounce back in a big way. So Jordan Love, to me, is a buy.
I don't know exactly who I'm taking outside of who's currently in the top 12 to make room for Love because there's a lot of good quarterbacks. But I would like to plant my flag on Jordan Love is going to be a quarterback one over the course of the season because he's not currently ranked that way. He's currently ranked as QB 14. He was much lower in draft rankings. He was like QB 18 or 19. So he's moved up a bit, but like I don't think he has moved up enough. I don't care about a terrible game against like maybe the best defense in football. Like the Browns the Ravens scored 40 points against the Browns, but it was a lot of short fields and their special teams and defense carrying that. And then the Browns did a very good job against the only week Joe Burrow was healthy. And I know people say, oh, well, the Bengals always start slow. But they did practice, they actually played in the preseason this year. I wonder if it was less them starting slow and more just that the Browns are really, really good because then they really did kind of shut down the Ravens offensively to a degree. And then they completely shut down the Packers. So I have no willingness to hear somebody say Jordan Love should drop in the rankings because of this bad week. To me, it's just look at the matchup. I think the Browns are going to be a defense to fear the entire season, assuming they stay healthy. So having said all that, I do think Jordan Love is underranked even as QB 14 right now, even having moved up 4 or 5 spots from where he was in August. I still think it's too low. Some of the names ahead of him like Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott. There's good fantasy quarterbacks in here. There are a lot of good names, but I think Love is going to be a QB1 this year.
I agree.
Who is your sell, quarterback or tight end?
I'm looking at tight end. It's going to be TJ Hockenson. So Hockenson had a resurgence in week 3 with a new quarterback under center. Basically, he actually got involved in the offense for the first time all year. 25% target share, 5 catches for 49 yards, and he also scored a touchdown. Look, the Wentz connection was on display. Carson Wentz has been known for targeting tight ends, and that was the case here with the Minnesota Vikings. Again, but the matchup was really good. Cincinnati Bengals are notoriously known as the best matchup for tight ends, so that concerns me for Hockenson long-term. We also have Jordan Addison coming back from his suspension in week 4, so that's another cause for concern for Hockenson in terms of, okay, is this going to be sustainable, his targets every single week? Now, I would say if you have him and you can't move him, you're probably going to start him against the Steelers because they just got destroyed by Hunter Henry. So I think that's okay. But then the Vikings have an early bye week. They're going on a bye week in I believe it's week 6 that they're going on a bye week. So you're not going to have him for that week. And what's it going to be like when JJ McCarthy does come back to the starting lineup? So Hockenson, I get the short-term appeal in this matchup against Pittsburgh, but long-term view, I am not optimistic about him continuing to see the kind of role he had here in week 3. So looking to buy certain players coming off bad games, Tucker Kraft bombed in week 3 against the Cleveland Browns. We just talked about how good their defense is. Maybe Kraft wasn't 100%, also dealing with a knee injury. If you can flip Hockenson after he had a big game, people think that he's back with Carson Wentz, flip him to go get Tucker Kraft.
What do you think the offense, how much do you buy into the idea that this was a shadow benching of JJ McCarthy and not strictly an injury thing? And do you expect to see Wentz for a large portion of the season, or do you think we'll get back to McCarthy relatively quickly and then kind of have to reevaluate things?
I think we'll get back to McCarthy after the bye week. I think that that's probably the most realistic. They just seem like they had so much faith in him in the offseason. I mean, remember, Carson Wentz was the last quarterback they signed. They had Sam Howell there during training camp, and they traded him, and they just signed Wentz off the street. So it seemed like they were just so all in on McCarthy. Maybe they got carried away a little bit, and look, he's still flashing that one quarter against the Chicago Bears where the other 7 quarters he played have not been great. He's still a young quarterback. It was his second start in the NFL. So there's going to be growing pains. And O'Connell, again, I think that his system is definitely more fit for a veteran quarterback than a really young one. But I think the upside case is still with McCarthy long-term, and he's their long-term quarterback. So I think they want to get him back under center as soon as he's healthy.
He does not have an easy stretch coming out of bye. So the week before the byes is Cleveland, who's obviously a really good defense. And then, oh, man, it goes Philly, Chargers, Detroit, Baltimore, the Bears, the Packers at Seattle. And then Washington, if you think they're good. I mean, like, that is a really tough
Saddle up,
stretch.
JJ.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I don't really have much to add on Hockenson, honestly. Like, I'm with you. I don't really have him in a lot of places, and I don't really want him in the places I do have him. I think he's a smart sell for sure. All right, let's go to some buy, sell, or hold. Got a couple wide receiver trios, got a quarterback one, and a tight end one for you. Wide receiver here, Odunze, Lad McConkey, Ricky Pearsall. Again, Odunze, McConkey, and Pearsall, buy, sell, or hold.
I'm going to buy Lad McConkey. I think that eventually his production is going to pick up. Going to hold Odunze, just a clear-cut alpha in the Chicago Bears offense. And I'm going to sell Ricky Pearsall, not because I'm not a believer in him, but because you can get the most for him, and there will be other receivers coming back to the lineup. You know, Brandon Ayuk is going to come back. Juwan Jennings is going to come back. So it's just possible that his target share isn't as high, even though he has been balling out. You can just get, I mean, if you could trade Ricky Pearsall for Lad McConkey right now, would you do it? I would. So yeah, if you can make that deal kind of happen just based on the 3 weeks, that's what I would do.
So just to clarify the point, you not only think Pearsall can sell for the most, you also have him ranked lowest of these 3?
Rest of season.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure I had that right. Do you think you could sell Pearsall for more than Odunze? Or you just meant you could sell him for more than Lad?
I don't know.
I know you don't want to sell Odunze, but if you wanted to, could you?
I would try to trade Pearsall to get Odunze or McConkey. That's what I would do.
But do you think the average manager would get more for Pearsall than Odunze?
It depends on how they view the Jennings, Ayuk, other receivers coming back. So I think that some managers will be like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like Pearsall's breaking out, so.
Yeah. Okay. Next wide receiver trio, Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Pittman Jr., Jalen Waddle.
I'm going to hold Marvin Harrison Jr. until he has a big game. I think I would probably buy Michael Pittman Jr. just because he's been really productive with the Colts. And I would probably, can you sell Jalen Waddle? I have concerns. He just hasn't looked that great, to be totally honest. So I have a lot of Waddle. I guess I'm trying to sell him, but I know that there's
you're the Waddle guy.
There's nobody buying, so that's why it's really an issue. I guess he's kind of like
touchdowns in back-to-back weeks.
He's kind of like a sell high, like the minute the Tyreek Hill gets traded, and then you just cash out. I think is probably the move I would make. I mean, I don't think any of these guys are like prime sells.
Will Marvin Harrison Jr. be a sell the first week that he has a big game for you? Like, will he be like a name you put into the outline? Like the second he catches a long touchdown, like, okay, time to sell Marvin Harrison Jr. Or will that be to you like, oh no, now maybe he's finally doing it and I want to keep him?
I think that the former. I think that he's going to probably go on the block the minute that because it just seems like it's more of what we saw last year, just like inconsistencies, up and down play, not on the same page with Kyler Murray.
So annoying, but yeah, I think you're right. Quarterback, Caleb Williams, Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott.
I'm going to sell Dak. Too many injuries right now. I'm going to hold Caleb Williams. And then who was the last guy?
It was Caleb, Baker, and Dak.
Okay, and then I'll buy Caleb, like the rushing in what we saw against the Dallas Cowboys, sell Dak, and I will hold Baker Mayfield.
All right, tight end, Tyler Warren, Tucker Kraft, Sam LaPorta.
Buy Tucker Kraft. As always, hold Tyler Warren, sell Sam LaPorta.
All right, we got to get out of here. He is Andrew Erickson. I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. If you missed part 1 with our running back episode, be sure to check that out. Again, as a reminder, we'll be here every week in 2 episodes, both on YouTube and on audio. For Erickson, I'm Worm. We'll see you next time.